you're ready. Okay, brilliant. So welcome to our final session, really, our final main session of the afternoon, which is on day 5 of National Careers Week 2021. I've said that quite often today, which has been an absolute pleasure. But we're here with our final session of the afternoon. So we're recording this session. Not only have we got the advantage of having this live session, but we are going to be using it as part of our resources going forward to promote housing as a career of choice and to promote the great opportunities within the housing profession. So in this session, in this final session of the afternoon, I'm so pleased to be joined by Lee Hampton. I think Lee and I feel like we're joined at the hip quite a bit at the moment, don't we? Albeit virtually, but we're sort of in constant contact and we are joined at the hip. So this session this afternoon is going to consist of a couple of things which I've touched upon in some of our earlier talks. Lee's going to talk to us about her role. She's going to talk to us about her journey into housing. And I think one of the things that you sort of discover is that Lee's role, all I'm going to say is it's quite unique in terms of sort of what she's doing at the moment. But, you know, I won't spoil any of those surprises. Lee is a careers advisor, and I'll get Lee will be able to introduce herself much better than I can, but obviously you know, has careers in housing going through sort of her body really. And then what we'll also do is I'd like to take forward some of the things that we've talked about throughout the day around, you know, what can we do? Some of those things about next steps, appreciating that there's some big challenges, you know, around sort of how do we really raise the profile of careers, you know, within the housing sector as a career of choice. But also, you know, what things can we do, you know, sort of that we have got immediate impact with. So Lee, if that's okay, is in terms of an introduction, I'm going to hand over to you then for the moment. Can you start to tell us a bit about you?
How long have we got, Jill? Right, I'm going to hopefully this is going to work and I can just get up a little presentation that I'm just going to use in the background. Oh, I don't know why it's doing that. Hold on. Okay. So it's lovely for the CIH to ask me to come along and talk today, because as you will hear, I'm really passionate about championing careers in housing. So this is me. My name's Lee Hampton. I'm the Employment and Skills Manager on a new development called 1 Horton Heath, and that is for Eastleigh Borough Council. I joined them in the summer, so right in the middle of lockdown. So I'm just going to very briefly talk about the development first, and then I'm going to go into my role. So this is going to be a mixed-use development. The build doesn't even start. We've just been working on the infrastructure road tail end of last year, going into the beginning of this year. So that's the kind of 2 roundabouts which will be at corresponding ends of the development, and we're going to be involved in this site for at least a decade. So through until, you know, 2035, around that kind of time. We're going to be building 2,300 homes as a minimum, primary school, commercial and small industrial units, community centre, and then as part of that, there's quite a large area. I should have looked up the amount and I didn't, so sorry about that. But within the 310 acres of the site, quite a lot of it is actually going to be left as open space. So open pathways, open, you know, like woodland cycle paths. So this is the first time that the council has created, developed and will build a housing area. So, you know, it's quite new to the council, and my role particularly is very unusual. So my role is as Employment and Skills Manager, and I'm just going to take you through my journey from a few years back to now, and then I'm going to talk to you in a bit more detail about what I'm actually doing at the moment. So this is my career journey. For a number of years, I worked for myself. So I had my own business. I was self-employed. I would go into a range of schools across North London and into the City of London, and I delivered peripatetic lessons. So they're lessons that are like an add-on to your core curriculum. So I would run breakfast clubs, lunch clubs, after school clubs, and sometimes for some of my schools within the school day. And I would work with students to prepare them in examinations in LAMDA. So LAMDA stands for the London Academy of Music and Dramatic Art. And their exams are in public speaking, debating, recital, and they do drama and musical theatre as well. So really, those exams help prepare young people to be able at any stage in their life to be able to stand up in front of others, give a presentation like today, to sell a product, to help them be confident in an interview situation, whether that's for uni, college, a job interview. So I used to say to my parents, at any stage in your life, and there's very few people that manage to dodge this, you will need to be able to sell yourself, a product, an idea, a project. So having that core skill of being able to eloquently describe the message that you want to get across and present that to your audience is crucial. And I think that we can see that that has not just become a core skill, it's become something that we want ingrained in our young people, that they can have that confidence and have those skills to move forward and express themselves clearly. So I had that business for a number of years until we moved down to the South Coast, and then everything changed really. I couldn't, it was really difficult to get that buy-in to continue doing what I was doing. So I took a new direction, and I was picked up by a local secondary school to lead on a community project with the most vulnerable families and to also lead on careers. And basically I was handed that because nobody else wanted to do it. It wasn't they picked me for my skill set. Basically no other teachers really wanted to add it on to their teaching role. So I kind of grabbed it with both hands, and that's when I really found where I needed to be in careers and later in employability. And I just got so much enjoyment working with young people and helping them to, untap their hidden skills, their hidden qualities, to work with them to really understand who they are, to help them to then take management of their own career journey, to give them lots of knowledge, information around what those next steps could be. So I then got picked up because the main project I was leading on was funded by the big lottery, and the funding was finishing. So my role was going to finish. So I was thinking, gosh, where can I go? I really want to stay within careers, but I'd quite like to work with adults now. So that was when I joined a housing association. I joined within the communities team, but because of my skill set, I worked really closely with the employment and training team as well. And I absolutely loved it. It gave me that opportunity to be creative, to think differently, to challenge the way things had been done with regards engagement in schools. Schools are at the heart of our communities, and for a housing association, it holds the opportunity to work with that cross generation. So working with the parents, the children, other people that family might come into contact with, local employers, and the housing association that I went to work for, which at the time was Sovereign. That was kind of why they wanted me to come on board, to really be able to unlock those opportunities. They were struggling to get into schools. So that was just a really exciting time, and we did some really great work together. I then got picked up by County Council for a short period of time, and now I'm in sort of like my dream job, because I'm working for Eastleigh Borough Council on a new development. So to take on an employment and skills manager when actually we don't have a resident and we don't even have a house is really unusual. So they wanted somebody to come in and really map out the skills that are in that area, where the skills gaps are, start to engage with the local employers, engage with employees and residents across the whole borough, and to really do some targeted work in schools. They know that my passion lies in housing and construction, so most of my role will be championing job roles within that sector. But then, you know, I can sort of flex and adapt to where the current labour market information tells us there is going to be a high amount of recruitment. So, for example, at the moment, I'm looking at an introduction to care programme of delivery. So I think what's interesting about my career journey is not this, but this that sits underneath. And I think listening to a lot of the people talking today, actually sometimes it's those skills, those volunteering roles that we do outside of our core role that help us to move forward. And grabbing opportunities that come your way when you're in any industry, that means you develop as a person, you learn more, you gain more knowledge and education, and that those experiences can help you move up the ladder. So if I was reflecting back, and I've just quickly put down a few here, that when I was at the school, I was given an opportunity to do a level 4 in advice and guidance. On a Sunday, once a month, I volunteered for a local children's bereavement charity. And then when I moved into my role at the Housing Association, I went along to a workshop delivered by National Careers Week up in London, in Westminster. And I sort of badgered them and said, oh my gosh, I love what you're doing. I'm in a housing association. I'm starting to create tools that we can use to talk about the different diverse range of roles that are in the housing sector. How can I help? So they said, well, we'd love you to be an ambassador for the Southwest. So then I took on that volunteering role. And then when I went across and I left the Housing Association, the local charity that I'd been signposting a lot of our residents to, which was SAMI, so they support people who are quite far from the labour market. So these are people who are vulnerable. They are people living with a long-term disability or health condition, and we work with people to get them moving closer to work. We don't usually use the phrase into work, because that's not right for everybody. So I joined them as a trustee, and then I was given funding to do my level 6 in careers and development outside of my full-time job, and I also took on a role as a school governor. And then in the last year, I've joined as a member to membership bodies, the IEP and URSA, which are both employability, membership bodies. And I've worked really closely, as Jill's been saying, as an advisor to the CIH. And outside of my job, I also give time to be employability and mentor and coach those out in communities. So I think what I'm really passionate about is having those add-on skills, looking for opportunities, whether it's within your organisation or, like me, as you can see here, a lot of these were outside of the organisation that I was working for. But actually, all of these things I use, all the skills that I've gained from these different volunteering roles have helped me move forward, helped me move up, help me be a better manager, help me understand the industry a lot better. So my current role has meant that I have started creating tools to go out into schools from primary right through to college, and I will be tackling FE and higher education throughout 2021 and into 2022. So I'm just going to touch on 2 projects that I've launched over the last year. And then you can kind of ask me a little bit more detail, or if you want links to these, I can definitely share those. So the first one was Jobs in a Box. So this is a box. It says what it is on the tin. Jobs in a Box. So this is full of costumes, scenario cards that the children will role play, and tasks. and these are all associated to job roles in housing. So this is a primary school resource. So I take this in and I have delivered it to children in year 1, so that's from the age of 5, right up to children in year 6, so that's age 10 and 11. And I introduced them to a variety of roles, and a lot of roles that they won't have come across before. There is like a maintenance role, but I tried to sort of encompass roles that they wouldn't necessarily have come across before. So we cover community development, housing officer, customer service, developer. We do some other sort of mainstream, not linked to a housing association as well. So we have architect in there, which can usually be a consultancy or commission service. We had estate agency in there. We had mortgage advisor within a bank. So sort of different roles that are all linked to a person living, moving into a home, maintaining a home. So I go in and I do an hour-and-a-half workshop with a year group, where we explore a little bit about what is in the box, and then I leave it in school. So it stays in school and it moves around the different classes for 4 weeks. And then when I go back to collect the box, I take 2 or 3 professionals from the local housing association where I'm working, so that over those 4 weeks, those kids have really had an immersive experience to explore and learn more about the roles. And then when I go back with the professionals, they have a little bit more information, and then they can do a Q&A session where they can put any questions to the professionals. So these questions can be quite interesting. They usually start with, how much do you earn? That's kind of like a given. And then sometimes they ask, how long is your breaks? What are your favourite chocolate biscuits? That kind of thing. So it just depends on, you know, that age group and the questions that they want to ask. But the older children are really interested in, you know, did you have to go to university? What's an apprenticeship? I've heard like my brothers or my older sister talking about work experience. So it's really about opening up conversations. So Abri, who were previously Radian, they funded the first box, and I'm very grateful to them. And this is Ali from the employment and training team. So you can see I'm showing her all of the costumes that they'd funded. And then there's a couple of quick little images there of some of the students in one of the local primary schools dressed up and exploring the different job roles. So that's a resource that I created for primary schools. Unfortunately, in the midst of a pandemic, which obviously none of us foresaw, was that this then became a tool that we couldn't use this year. We couldn't use it because the insurance company said, oh my heavens, what do you mean? They're pulling out costumes, they're trying them on, they're sharing the costumes around. You know, it is, with a pandemic, it has turned into something which we've had to just put on hold, and that's temporarily. We will go out into schools are waiting, they're desperate to have the toolkit, but we just have to wait until the guidance gives us the green light and to take this into schools. There's ways we can work around it, but it's a frustration, but these things are sent to try us, and you just move forward, which leads me on to the next thing. So because I'm a careers advisor, and I sit on a forum that Jill also sits on with careers leaders across the UK. So careers advisors and careers leaders sit within a secondary school. Every secondary school has to evidence that careers is embedded within the curriculum. And they were all saying what we really need are job role videos at the moment, so that students can still learn about jobs, but they are unable at the moment to go to businesses or to do work experience. So I've been beavering away in lockdown, going out and interviewing a diverse range of people that are professionals that are involved in our development. So initially, at the moment, really, we are at the design stage. We've had a little bit of infrastructure development, as I alluded to at the beginning. So we've banked 13 job role videos, and they're all between 4 and 6 minutes long. So any school can run that in a tutor time. They can run it in a careers lesson, in a PHSCE lesson, or you know, a lot of these do link to curriculum subjects, so they could be woven into curriculum learning. And I basically asked the professionals about the different routes in the learning pathways that got them to this place, got them to this job role that they currently do, how the role links to the curriculum subjects those students are learning, top tips, you know, what we would suggest they do as a student if they're interested in being an architect, or like Ross here, a technical manager, or Natalie here, who is one of the machine operatives, and why they love their role. So these are the questions that I'm asking, and we've had some really lovely feedback. So this launched the week before National Careers Week, so that was last week, so that the careers leaders had this as a tool to use in classrooms during this week and also beyond. And yeah, it's been nice to do something that I know teachers can use right now, and they can obviously continue to use it in the future. So Vivid and Abri, I've now got days booked in with them in May, where I will go out and spend time interviewing those roles that are within more of the housing sector. So, you know, the jobs that you all know and love. So, you know, tenancy support, development, again, community investment, probably housing officer role, you know, the more generic roles like, you know, the lawyers, the legal department, HR, IT. So we will bank those, and then they will be launched in the summer. So these are just sort of like 2 job role resources that I've created, which means I can go into schools, I can start championing the diverse range of roles that exist within the housing and or construction industry, and how they work together. So that's sort of what I've done so far. I'm really looking for people to feed into me about how they think I can develop this project, what they would like to see in there, what they're finding their local schools need. So, you know, I'm really up for people's feedback on how this can be developed and be the best tool it can be. And also for you as practitioners working out in communities, for those that do, to use this tool and share it. It's a free resource. I want it to be used. I haven't created it just for the schools where I'm working. So the link is here on this final page. This is a quote, as you can see, from Nick Newman. So he's the CEO at National Careers Week. And then I've also left you my email address. I'm on Twitter, I'm on LinkedIn, I'm kind of everywhere really. So that's me. I'm going to stop sharing, if I can work out how I do that on here. Okay, let me go back into this. Stop sharing. I think I should be, are we back in the room? Okay, I think we're back in the room. So, all right, I can see everyone now because I've just been chatting. So, yeah, that's me really. So, Jill, what else do you want to know?
Brilliant. Thank you very much for that, Lee. So, really great insight into your career path. And as I said, I've got a unique, oh, sorry, I can hear it. So apologies to me. But what I was also particularly keen on is obviously hearing about jobs in a box. I mean, I know, you know, quite a bit about jobs in a box, obviously from, you know, sort of knowing you, and obviously I've been involved in the videos that you've created as well, which are proving to be excellent resources. I was tempted to sort of start off by asking you a question, which was, well, what is your favourite biscuit? But I'm quite
all of them. I don't think there's one I would turn
down. Me too, but my favourites are chocolate hobnobs. So, does anybody, before we sort of start to take this discussion a bit further, does anybody have any questions in particular for Lee on any of those aspects, or anything around either observations or general comments? So please don't be shy, and do sort of take the opportunity to take part in this discussion, because I think what we want to do is to sort of really look at some of the things that you've touched upon. I think are quite difficult and quite challenging for us to actually address, and we're not going to be able to do things overnight. But as I mentioned earlier, I think there are certain things that ultimately we can all get involved in and sort of take, you know, our own sort of piece of responsibility in that. If I just give you to sort of help with some of those thoughts.
Yeah, I mean, I think some of the things we touched on earlier in the day that I know people have been, I've got a couple of questions that people sort of sent through to me earlier about, you know, there's a number of industry leaders out there that have decided to really jump onto this about sharing careers in their sector. And Barclays, the Barclays Eagles, we've got NatWest, we've got careers in racing, we've got careers in maritime, we've got the NHS, you know, careers hub, which is amazing. And I think housing is quite a big step behind some of those leaders. They've seen this opportunity, the CITB you might be working with, but actually there's lots of organisations that have decided to really jump on this and say, right, what can we create? What can we be going into schools with to really champion our industry, to entice those young people to see that as, you know, they're making that decision that they've decided, having listened to information and experiences that they've had, that's where they want to go. That's the route that they're deciding for themselves, rather than they fall into it at the end of university or because they've done a couple of other roles and they see a job advert. So I do think we're behind the curve a little bit, and we do need to sort of ramp it up, looking for opportunities where we can sort of broker and pull in that opportunity to go into a school and come up with something quite bespoke, that's engaging, interesting, that's different to what other people are doing. And we can look at some other examples of what these organisations are doing and build on that. But, you know, one of the big things at the moment, obviously work experience can't happen. So there's organisations like Speakers for Schools that are desperately looking for either pre-recorded video content or for, you know, organisations to go live and give a virtual work experience opportunity. So I think that's a quick win for a housing association to maybe jump in and do, and that's certainly something I could see the Place Creators project that I've been doing maybe bolt onto. So if I could come out to a housing association and maybe do like half a morning videoing a housing officer, like really getting under the skin of the role, showing the tasks they do, how they communicate with residents, that skill set that you need. You know, you need to be empathetic, you need to have patience and understanding, but you need to understand boundaries. You need to be able to clearly communicate the messaging at the right pitch, using the right tone of voice for that resident. So I think that's a piece of work that I'm thinking actually that would be a really good add-on. So it's looking at how do we show people the breadth of skills and qualities that you need in the professional roles that we have within the sector.
Yeah, brilliant. So from the practitioners that are in the audience, does anybody sort of have any immediate sort of thoughts about that idea in principle? Lee and I have sort of discussed this sort of quite broadly already, and I don't know, you know, whether anybody has got any sort of observations that they want sort of to touch upon with that, because, you know, in looking at various sort of sites and websites and so on at the moment, you know, what I'm seeing quite a lot is, you know, placement, you know, work experience placements on hold. So, you know, it would be good to sort of hear whether anyone has got any experience of where that has been reversed or has been sort of, you know, sort of taken as a challenge to look at how it can be done differently, but also then to look at sort of this idea that Lee's exploring. So that's something for us to think about. Like, I think everyone's sort of quite quiet and sort of taking things in, Lee. So I've got no hands up at the moment.
One of the other questions that's coming up that I've just been asked is, you know, about being inspirational and aspirational when, you know, you're going in and doing delivery in schools. And I think something I would like to everyone to think about is, you know, coming into the sector, what who inspired you? You know, what made you excited about this industry? Because if we can capture that from CIH members, that can then form the foundation of what we create and take into schools. Because we've heard a lot this morning and earlier on after lunch about, you know, what a couple of people have said what they love about coming into this industry is how helpful and supportive everybody is, or the opportunities to move up or move across, or, you know, and I think if that's what has inspired you to stay in the, isn't it? Is that something that's unique to housing, or is that something that we just want to challenge within our sector? But actually, what does inspire us, or who inspires you to be a better practitioner within the industry? So I think that's something for us all to sit and think about. How did we come in here? Why are we here? What motivates us to stay here?
Yeah, and as James has alluded to, and through some research that CIH, well, that Joe Richardson produced as part of looking at well-being at work within housing, you know, that the message about, you know, the housing professionals that were surveyed as part of that, the reason for them choosing their career path was really about making a difference and having that aspiration to make a difference. And I do think there is so much in that around, you know, how we do need to you know, make that a stronger message and celebrate it, you know, much more.
It's like a thread that goes through all of the videos, actually. And obviously, you know, the roles at the moment have been like the design roles. So it's been interesting, right from the ecologist through to the machine operative, through to the labourers on site. They're all saying the same thing, that they believe everybody has the right to a home, that we want to create homes for people where they feel safe, where they work, live and play. So, you know, that's it, isn't it, really? That's the message that is at the heart of what we...
Yeah, brilliant. Is there anything that jumps out to anybody in terms of when we were talking about, I think there's a few things. I think there's the opportunity for us to look at how we take this forward. And one of the things that sort of strikes me is certainly around the Careers in Housing Action Group that we've established. You know, the latter, partway through last year, and that's how doing this event and a lot of our content that we've had during National Careers Week, you know, we've able to produce, and with that active contribution. So I think there's certainly a lot of things that we can take away to sort of look at within that group. And the offer is always on the table for any of our members and housing professionals, you know, to join that group and really sort of help us to make that shift change. I'd like people as well to think about certain things that they might be able to do themselves. So if going back to one of the things that we did on Twitter earlier this week was posed the question about, you know, do you promote careers in housing? Do you promote the different opportunities? We actually had a really good response to that poll when it went out. So we got something in the region of about 135 responses, which I think certainly gives us, you know, a good backbone to actually sort of take some of this and see where we go with it. Just under half of the respondents indicated that, yes, they did promote careers in housing to friends and family often. But the other side of the coin really was that there was just as many respondents who actually indicated that either, this is probably the same sort of question, but like I say, looking at it combined, that yes, they did promote careers in housing, but not very often. And also that not as often as they could. So
that's an interesting one, isn't it? Because that's where your opportunity sits.
Yeah, absolutely. So if that is then about recognising that they were promoting career as a housing of choice to the people that are in their network, but not as often as they could. What's that barrier? What is it? Is it about resources? Is it about feeling equipped to be able to do it? Is it about that natural instinct to do it? I don't know. So we've actually got some really good opportunities to explore that in a lot more detail. And as part of our resources that we've developed for National Careers Week, Tara's worked on developing what we call like a PowerPoint presentation, a template presentation that again will form part of the resources that we're building up as part of our careers resources. And in this one instance, we've got a representative from one of our housing organisations who's actually done a voiceover to this recording, and it's then been used in her daughter's school. So we've got some great examples of where things like that are being done. And I know that there is so much that is happening. Part of it is about getting that fuller picture about the different things that are happening to promote that, whether it's through apprenticeships, whether it's through general chats or at virtual careers fairs and things like that. So there certainly is an awful lot for us to think about in that wider context. About where we go. I mean, I'd be interested in seeing whether anybody wants to put into the chat about something that they would be keen to just pledge that they do. Is that about, you know, taking the opportunity over these coming weeks to at least talk to one or two people about their role, about the different opportunities that are within the sector, because all of those things really do make a difference.
And, you know, schools are so hungry to have those opportunities as well. You know, they really, you know, these poor careers advisors, and we know quite a lot about that role, Jill, you know, you can't know everything about every industry. So if you have your local housing association, get in touch with the careers leader at the school and say, you know, can I come in and give a talk, whether that's virtually or physically is obviously better, about the diverse range of roles within our housing organisation, because we're running this competition, for example. They will grab that opportunity with both hands. It's just stepping into that space, isn't it? Doing that first introductory email can sometimes be a bit tricky. If you've got that nice presentation from the CIH in your back pocket, then maybe you've got a little bit more confidence to send that email or, you know, make that call. And you and I are always there to kind of like help people if they want to know how best to do that introduction.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Lee, I don't know if you've seen the chat, but Adanik has said that is great. Well done, Lee, and fantastic work that you've been doing. So that recognition there.
I love it. It's such good fun. You know, I feel for young people at the moment because there's almost too much, you know, too much information, but it's not necessarily targeted to particular industries. So I just want to make things really simple for kids, really, and do things that are engaging, that are fun. So yeah, I'm very fortunate that I'm working for an organisation that's given me that autonomy.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think it's absolutely great. I mean, one of the things that I did in preparation for National Careers Week, but didn't really have the opportunity to sort of take it much further, was doing a couple of, you know, probably like word searches and things like that we could use as part of
we've got those in the jobs in a box, and I can share anything like that if you're going.
Oh, Lee's frozen. I'm not sure if anybody else can hear Lee. I can't hear her at the moment. She's frozen for me, but I think I've got an idea about what she'll be saying. And it will be about, you know, if there's anything that you've got in terms of ideas or things that we can put into the jobs in a box, we can look at doing that. Any sort of thoughts about anything that would be really engaging and interesting that we could put as part of our resources? What could we do to develop that, you know, would be additional to, resources, say for primary school or secondary school, you know, sort of pupils? So I think, does anybody have any sort of further questions? No? It's been a great day. It's been an absolutely fantastic day. So I think probably we had built in a smaller session after this, which was just to sort of final thoughts. But because this particular live, it's only a small group of us at the moment, I think that we've probably captured everything that we wanted to today. So I think without further ado, all I want to do is just to thank all of you for taking part today, everybody that's going to be listening to these recordings going forward, and to all of our speakers. I hope that you've found the day beneficial and insightful in terms of the different things that we've been able to cover. So thank you very much, everybody. And I'm now going to ask Sharon to stop our recording. It's been great to see everybody, and have a lovely weekend. Thanks, everyone.